Los Angeles Dodgers manager Dave Roberts did not mince words. He did not offer the careful, media-trained non-answers that managers typically retreat to when controversy finds its way into a press conference. He stood in front of the cameras, looked directly into them, and pushed for punishment. For the Marlins' second baseman. For what happened to Shohei Ohtani. And now, all of baseball is paying attention. Let's go back to the beginning. Because to understand why Dave Roberts responded the way he did, you need to understand exactly what was captured on that camera. Baseball is a sport built on unwritten rules. Every player who has ever put on a major league uniform understands them, even if they were never written down in any official rulebook. You do not show up an opponent unnecessarily. You do not cross certain lines. And above everything else, you do not target another player deliberately. What the camera caught suggested that line had been crossed. The incident involving the Marlins' second baseman and Shohei Ohtani was not the kind of thing that gets explained away easily. It was not incidental contact in the flow of a play. It was not a misread situation or a moment of poor instincts under pressure. The footage, once it began circulating across broadcast networks and social media platforms, told a story that was difficult to reinterpret in a favorable light. And the story it told was this: Ohtani was on the receiving end of something that had no legitimate baseball justification. The reactions from players on both sides of the field were immediate and telling. There is a specific kind of silence that falls over a dugout when something happens that everyone recognizes as wrong, not just tactically wrong or strategically questionable, but fundamentally wrong in the way that violates the shared understanding of how competitors are supposed to treat one another. That silence was visible on camera too. Then the Dodgers' dugout began to move. There are managers who manage games. And then there are managers who manage people, who understand that their most important function is not filling out a lineup card but protecting the culture and the human beings inside their clubhouse. Dave Roberts has always been the second kind of manager. What he did in the aftermath of the incident was not impulsive. It was not an emotional reaction from a manager caught up in the heat of the moment, saying things he would need to walk back the following morning. It was deliberate. It was measured. And it carried the full weight of someone who understood exactly what he was saying and exactly why it needed to be said. Roberts pushed for punishment. He called on the league to respond. He made clear that what happened on that camera, what every person with eyes could now see for themselves, was not acceptable. Not for any player. And certainly not for a player of Ohtani's stature and conduct. That last part matters more than it might seem on the surface. Because Roberts was not just defending his best player in the way that managers are expected to defend their best players. He was making a larger argument. He was saying that the incident was wrong on its own merits, independent of who the victim was. But he was also making the point, carefully, deliberately, that Ohtani represents a standard of professionalism and conduct that makes this particular incident even more jarring. Shohei Ohtani does not seek confrontation. He does not retaliate verbally. He does not engage in the psychological warfare that some players use to gain competitive edges. He shows up. He prepares. He competes at the highest level possible. And then he goes home. The idea that someone would deliberately target a man who operates like that is what made Roberts' push for punishment feel less like a managerial defense and more like a moral position. Now let's talk about the player at the center of this. Being involved in an incident of this nature, one that gets caught on camera, one that draws the public response of an opposing manager, one that triggers a league review, is a career-defining moment. Not in the way that players dream about. In the way that follows them. The Marlins' second baseman now faces a reality that no player wants to confront. The footage exists, the reactions are on record, and the institutional machinery of Major League Baseball is now engaged. Roberts' public call for punishment is significant precisely because of what it signals to the league office. When a manager of Roberts' experience and credibility steps in front of cameras and makes a formal, public case for disciplinary action, the league cannot treat it as background noise. It becomes part of the official record of the incident. It creates pressure, not political pressure in the negative sense, but the kind of accountability pressure that any well-functioning institution should feel when a respected voice within it identifies a clear violation of standards. For the Marlins' second baseman, the path forward is narrow. A denial that contradicts what the camera shows will not be believed. An explanation that minimizes what occurred will not satisfy the players, managers, and fans who have already seen the footage. The only credible responses available are acknowledgement and accountability, and even those will not fully erase what was documented. Baseball has a long institutional memory. The unwritten rules that govern conduct between competitors exist precisely because the game is long, 162 regular season games, with rosters cycling through the same opponents multiple times a year. Players remember. Managers remember. The league remembers. And cameras, as this incident has made abundantly clear, remember everything. Here is what is remarkable about Shohei Ohtani in the middle of all of this. He kept playing. No outburst. No visible agitation that bled into his performance. No public statement that inflamed the situation or shifted attention from the incident itself toward a secondary conflict. The man who was at the center of the most talked about moment in baseball that week simply continued to do what he always does. He prepared. He competed. He performed. And in doing so, he said more than any statement ever could. There is a particular kind of strength that does not announce itself. It does not wave flags or demand recognition. It operates quietly, consistently, and with a focus that makes the chaos happening around it seem somehow distant. This is the kind of strength that Ohtani has demonstrated throughout his career, not just in the statistical achievements or the contract milestones, but in the moments when external pressure tries to pull him off his axis. It never does. His teammates noticed. His manager noticed. And the broader baseball world, watching the footage of the incident and then watching Ohtani's response to it, or rather, his deliberate absence of response, noticed too. Dave Roberts' push for punishment was not just about accountability for what happened. It was also, in a way, a recognition of this quality in Ohtani. Because when a player refuses to escalate a situation that would justify escalation, the responsibility for pursuing justice shifts entirely to the institutional structures around him. Roberts understood that. He stepped into the space that Ohtani's composure created and made the case that the incident could not simply be absorbed and forgotten. Someone had to speak. And Roberts made sure that he was the one who did. Major League Baseball now faces a decision that will be interpreted as a statement regardless of what it chooses. If the league acts, if the Marlins second baseman faces formal discipline, it sends a message about the standards of conduct that will be enforced, about the protection that all players can expect when something crosses a line, and about the weight that a manager's public advocacy carries when it is grounded in clear evidence. If the league does not act, or acts in a way that feels inadequate relative to what the camera showed, it sends a different message entirely. It says that the footage, the reactions, the public push for punishment, none of it was enough. And that message would reverberate far beyond this single incident. This is the moment of truth. Baseball has spent years working to modernize its image, to expand its audience, to position itself as a sport that is moving forward rather than clinging to the structures and assumptions of an earlier era. Shohei Ohtani himself has been central to that effort. His arrival in America brought an entirely new global audience to the game, millions of fans who follow him across time zones and language barriers and cultural contexts. Those fans are watching this incident too. They are watching to see whether the institution that benefits so enormously from his presence will take seriously the obligation to protect him when something goes wrong. They are watching to see whether the push for punishment that Dave Roberts made publicly, on camera, in front of the world, results in accountability or silence. The league's response will be its answer. Step back from the specific details of the incident. Step back from the Marlins second baseman, from the footage, from Roberts' press conference. Step back far enough to see the larger pattern that this incident is part of. Shohei Ohtani is the most scrutinized player in baseball. Possibly the most scrutinized player in any professional sport in America right now. Every at-bat is analyzed. Every pitching performance is dissected. Every public appearance generates coverage across multiple countries simultaneously. That level of scrutiny comes with a shadow side. When you are the most watched player in the game, you are also the most visible target. Not just for opposing pitchers trying to get you out, but for the broader dynamics of competition, the psychological edges, the gray areas, the moments where competitors make choices that the unwritten rulebook was specifically designed to prevent. Ohtani has navigated all of it. Quietly. Consistently. Without complaint. But the incident caught on camera against the Marlins' second baseman is a reminder that navigating something quietly does not mean that the institution around you should be equally quiet. The game has a responsibility to its players, all of its players, to enforce the standards of conduct that make professional competition meaningful. Dave Roberts understood this. That is why he pushed for punishment rather than letting the situation dissolve into the background of a busy season. He was saying something simple and important: what the camera showed was not acceptable, it will not be treated as acceptable, and the people in this clubhouse, starting with Shohei Ohtani, deserve better. The footage is not going away. Roberts' words are on the record. The league is engaged. The Marlins' second baseman faces a disciplinary process that will define how this incident is remembered. And Ohtani, characteristically, has already moved forward, preparing for the next game, the next at-bat, the next opportunity to do what he does better than almost anyone alive. What happens in the coming days will matter. The league's decision will matter. The accountability, or lack of it, will matter. But here is what will not change regardless of the outcome. Shohei Ohtani was targeted. The camera caught it. His manager stood up for him publicly and without hesitation. And the baseball world watched all of it unfold in real time, forming its own judgments about what it saw. In a sport built on unwritten rules, the most important one has always been the simplest: you respect the game, and you respect the people who play it. What the camera exposed on that field was a moment when that rule was broken. Dave Roberts made sure that moment would not be quietly forgotten. The only question now is whether the league will make sure of the same thing.